Om Tat Sat. Welcome to Gyan Bhakti channel from Swami Nikhilananda. My humble prostrations to the all-pervading Brahman, to my worshipful Guruji, Swami Jyotirmayananda Ji Maharaj, to Ram Parivar and all sages and saints, and to each of you divine soul watching today's satsang. We are currently studying the holy scripture, Mysticism of Ramayana. Commentary is by my worshipful Guruji, Swami Jyotirmayananda Maharaj, narrated by myself, Swami Nikhilananda. So let us continue our satsang for today, where we are studying the journey of Lord Rama and the mystical implication of Sita and Lord Shiva. So, however, on the spiritual path, everyone has to discover his own innate glory by following the path according to his own light. So each soul progresses on that journey individually. Every soul must wander through the world process according to its own karma. So each of us has our own journey to follow. Eventually, through the process of spiritual sadhana, the intellect undergoes a process of transformation and becomes intuitive, and the sense of separation from the self is eliminated forever. And that is the process of mukti, Jivanmukti, or self-realization. In various places in the Ramayana, including this episode in which Sati is blessed by a brief vision of Rama's greatness, Tulsidas ji clearly portrays Rama as the Brahman of the Upanishads. That's why they say Ram se bada Ram ka naam, even more glorious than Lord Rama himself is his name. The concepts of Brahman goes even beyond the concepts of Vishnu, Brahma and Shiva, which are limited manifestations of Brahman. Therefore he is higher above all those divinities. Rama is greater than hundreds of Vishnus, hundreds of Brahmas, hundreds of Shivas. Just like thousands of reflections of the sun will not compare with the sun. It's the reflections are part of the sun. They come from the sun, they merge back into the sun. So that is the essence. The sun is always beyond, no matter how wonderful the reflections may be. In Sati's vision, she sees Rama, Lakshmana and Sita as always the same, though everything else changes. In this universe, all things change, but Brahman, the Absolute, is always the same. That is the meaning of this episode. Rama, Lakshmana and Sita are three aspects of the one Absolute Self, Satchitananda. Rama represents the Absolute, Lakshmana represents the cosmic mind, and Sita represents the cosmic power of Maya Shakti. All three are actually one reality, same one reality which never changes. Sati's vision also gives her a glimpse of the unimaginable vastness of the universe. Similarly, as the mind of an aspirant is able to free itself from egoistic illusions, it develops a greater sensitivity to that staggering vastness. That understanding continues to sweep over one's ego consciousness and allows the ego to gradually melt. And that is the goal. Unless the ego melts, ego is Meghanath, Ravana, the demoniac forces, and unless the ego melts, we cannot proceed fully on the holy path. So therefore the ego has to go. Shiva's sacred vow. So when Sati returned to the heavenly chariot, Lord Shiva smiled and said, "Tell me truly, how did you test Rama?" Sati, whose mind was filled with a blend of shame, fear, and awe from her experiences, did not know how to express herself before Shiva. So she said, "O Shiva, I acted exactly as you did. You saluted Rama from a distance, so I too saluted him. How could your words prove false? Having immense belief and trust in your words, I never tested Rama." Despite these words, Shiva knew all that Sati had done. He could see through his meditation, through his transcendental view. He then bowed his head to Rama inwardly, understanding that it was Rama's Maya or cosmic illusion that had compelled Sati to speak words that were not true, and Rama's divine intention that had led Sati to be deluded. Shiva then resolved that Sati could no longer remain as his consort. He could not accept her back into the relationship that they had before unless she became totally transformed. This is called Shiva Sankalpa, a vow that is immensely auspicious, a vow made with the special power of God's will. So, realizing the import of this vow, Sati was sunk in grief. When they reached their former abode on Mount Kailasha, Shiva sat under the great banyan tree and entered into Samadhi. Sati continued to dwell on the mountain, overcome by remorse and sadness, with every day seeming like an eternity. Unable to bear the pain caused by separation from Shiva, Sati lifted her voice in prayer, saying, O Creator, I insulted Rama, and I considered the words of Shiva false. And now I must reap the fruit in the form of an ocean of misery that goes on swelling more and more day by day. It is my prayer that you will not let me live in this body that has been rejected by Lord Shiva. If I have true devotion to Lord Shiva's feet, then may I be released from this body as soon as possible, and may I unite with Shiva in another form. Thus Sati, the daughter of Daksha, passed her time in agony until a long period of time had passed. Then Shiva opened his eyes. So there are deeper reasons, meanings behind these adversities and things that happen in our life. As the story of Sati points out, when the mind is overpowered by ignorance, it does not believe in the wise guidance given by an enlightened personality. That is why when sages and saints, they preach, they give their message, they do satsang, the worldly people continue to move on, don't find time or understand their message. But that's okay, because it's all part of the divine plan. Whenever the soul is ready, whenever they are receptive, they will receive that knowledge. The mind considers itself more clever. Therefore, ignorance is associated with doubt. So this is what happens. These are the stages an aspirant has to go through. This further leads to falsehood, and falsehood forces a person to insult even those who are wiser and more spiritually advanced than they are. The ego comes in the way, arrogance comes in the way, pride comes in the way, etc. When ignorance, falsehood, and doubt dominate human personality, one is separated from the divine self. And that is the journey. So our goal is therefore to go back and connect with the divine self. When acceptance of spiritual truths by the intellect is more intellectual than spiritual, nature will not let that acceptance remain unchallenged. So these are divine laws, by the way. One's whole personality must accept the truth. Therefore, Sati's outward acceptance of Rama as Brahman the Absolute did not arise out of real knowledge but out of falsehood. Therefore, that form of falsehood could not be accepted in the divine plan. The intellect that truly wants to understand Rama must allow itself to be fully transformed. Therefore, just reading Ramayana, just listening is not enough. We have to start leading that life, start purifying ourselves, trying to be like Rama, trying to bring those qualities within. Only then are we truly following the Ramayana in its intended sense. Through numerous lives, the unenlightened intellect has been our close companion, and we have been faithful to it. But then there comes a time in the course of our sadhana or spiritual discipline when we realize that intellect does not lead us to Satchit Ananda or Brahman or existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute, and it has doubts regarding the divine goal of our life. So the intellect starts to play games with our logic, intellect, etc. The moment the spirit within us recognizes that we must make our resolve, our sankalpa. What is the sankalpa? That I will not have this intellect that pursues worldly values. I must possess intuitional intellect. This is a big sankalpa. In other words, we are saying this world is transient, God is real, I want God and I want to connect to Him somehow. I will not rest until I have attained self-realization or mukti, nirvana, God realization. They are all the same thing. I will not reconcile with the world process. This is called Shiva Sankalpa, the auspicious resolve for attaining enlightenment. So once that resolve has taken place, then one can be called a serious spiritual aspirant. Until then, it is just a journey among your worldly path. It does help, but it is not enough to propel us into deeper spirituality. So when Sati realized that she had been abandoned by Lord Shiva, she determined to bring about a transformation within herself. So that is the satsang for today. Very profound, deep, and we will continue this journey and enjoy this nectar almost every day on a daily basis. So this is Swami Nikhilananda. Om Tat Sat.